to Exposing Workplace Bullying, where we pull back the curtain and have real conversations about workplace abuse. This is episode 25, The Harder They Fall. I'm your host, Dr. Jan Kircher. I've been dealing with workplace bullying since 2001. That's when it all started for me. So I've been in this conversation for a long time. And you know what's changed in all that time? Almost nothing. We still focus on the person being bullied. We still blame them for it. We still hand them the same checklist: document, report, leave, which ironically often escalates the bullying and does nothing to stop it. We still call the bully a narcissist, as if that explains anything. And when it comes to organizations, we point to zero tolerance policies. Policies everyone knows are just words on a page. In many cases, they remove the person who's being bullied. That's some solution. This is where the conversation has stayed stagnant for decades. And it makes sense. If workplace bullying is framed as interpersonal conflict, a problem between a few individuals, then it does not require structural accountability. It simply requires those individuals to be managed. But if this were true, as people cycle in and out of organizations, over time, the problem should correct itself. Bullying should burn itself out. But that is not what happens. What we see are the same behaviors resurfacing in different people, under different leaders, in different seasons, within the same organization and professions, not just over months or years, but over decades. So here is the real question: why can't we stop it? Part of the reason is that the dominant narrative around workplace bullying has been far too narrow. Reducing bullying to interpersonal conflict instead of focusing on the systemic failures that cause it and sustain it. That perspective allows organizations to blame workers, pass off responsibility, and rely on interventions and zero-tolerance policies that are ineffective. This limited narrative protects institutions, not people. It ensures responsibility never moves beyond the person being bullied. It's no mystery why the narrow focus continues. Organizations aren't interested in hearing that they have a structural or leadership problem. So they don't hire people like me or any other consultant who will point the finger directly at them. The reality is, when bullying is present, it means organizations are responsible, not individuals. And that is a much harder reality to confront. Dealing with bullying means facing the role leadership plays in creating and sustaining it. Many leaders participate in bullying. Many others look away when it comes knocking on their door, and that has to stop. If leaders are tired of allegations, tired of turnover, tired of losing money, then they need to accept that dismantling bullying is their responsibility. That is what has to happen if organizations are going to address workplace bullying. Leadership cannot be passive. They have to respond to bullying when it shows up. And we're not there yet. Right now, most leaders are not even equipped to recognize bullying, let alone do anything about it. Yes, They may have heard of it, and they might even be able to repeat a flimsy definition, but that's nowhere near enough. Leaders must be educated about workplace bullying, especially leaders in high-risk professions. Another fatal flaw of narrowing the definition and scope of workplace bullying to interpersonal conflict is that leaders, unions, and associations are left with almost no practical guidance on what to do beyond issuing zero-tolerance policies. And they cling to those zero-tolerance policies like life preservers because they give the illusion of action. They let leadership look decisive. We've removed the problem. The bully is gone. While the system that enabled the bully stays fully intact. They can even give the person being bullied a momentary sense that something real is happening. And yes, something is technically being done, but it's not progress. Zero-tolerance policies don't dismantle bullying. They strengthen it. They deepen the harm. If your organization or association has one of these, get rid of it today, now, no exceptions. The good news for organizations and leaders is that there are real interventions for addressing workplace bullying. Bully culture didn't appear overnight, so there are no quick fixes and no policy that magically changes everything. But there are things you can do. Lasting change takes time, commitment, sustained effort, and a real willingness to do things different. If you want real change, accountability is the key. It has to be woven into everything. The daily work, the culture, the policies, the norms, the values, and the actions of the organization. You must have interventions that are multi-systemic. It has to happen at every level of the system, from individual behavior to departments and units to the highest level of leadership. And the place where that work begins is training. And that starts at the top. Every leader must receive intensive training on workplace bullying from a leadership perspective, not basic awareness modules. Training on what workplace bullying is, the risk factors, how to recognize it, and most importantly, how to intervene when it is happening under their authority. There should be mandatory training for all employees as well. If your organization is serious about ending workplace bullying, stop the talk and get real training in the door now, especially if you're in a high-risk profession. And here's the good news. You already know a trainer who does this work. Reach me at jan@stopbullyculture.com or go to stopbullyculture.com, request-training. Don't put this off. Do it today. It's too important. People assume one good training fixes bullying, but it won't. Training in and of itself doesn't change anything. It doesn't change behavior. It only means I attended a training. Behavior like bullying, ingrained into the culture, only begins to shift when organizations set clear parameters and hold people accountable to them. That's the next step, establishing clear standards of professional conduct that define how people are expected to interact with their colleagues, and then translating those standards into daily practice. Most organizations have never even thought about this. We assume people know how to be professional. Trust me, they don't. And without standards, organizations are essentially putting people with completely different expectations for behavior in the same environment, hoping it works out. It's the equivalent of putting a lion in with the house cat and expecting them to get along. It's obvious they won't. So standards exist so everyone knows exactly what the organization considers acceptable and what it will not tolerate, like bullying. This is especially true for leaders. There are no free passes at that level. Expectations are higher. People are watching how you act and whether you follow the standards yourself. Professional skills can be learned, but not through a one-time conversation or onboarding. They require mandatory, recurring training. Not the passive compliance modules where I mute the video and retake the quiz 10 times until I pass. That isn't training. It's checking a bureaucratic box. It doesn't change behavior. Real training means practicing the skill in real time and being evaluated on whether you can actually use it. That's what makes professional conduct stick. And if I were the boss, I'd be in those sessions myself because leadership presence signals that this matters. And leaders should be evaluated on those skills too. Refresher courses aren't beneath leadership, they're part of the job. A code of professional conduct alone, of course, won't stop bullying. It's only as good as the paper it's written on, or, more accurately these days, the cloud server it's saved on. Without enforcement, that's all it is, a document. Accountability is what gives it weight. This is the part most organizations avoid. When people do not meet established standards, there must be meaningful consequences. Don't threaten action, implement progressive discipline. Progressive discipline allows organizations to support employees and leaders who fall short by helping them build the skills and conduct required for success. It also signals to the entire organization that accountability is real and consistent. This isn't about removing people or firing them. It's about developing them. The goal is improvement, strengthening both the individual and the workplace as a whole. When accountability is real, over time, the culture begins to shift. People start interacting differently. Expectations become clearer. They stop tolerating harmful behavior, and professionalism becomes the norm. But that shift isn't always smooth. People resist change, and there will be real pushback. It's inevitable. It may not surface in the first week, the first month, or even within 6 months, but it will come eventually. When accountability becomes real, the entire system shifts, and leaders cannot step back or hand this off to someone else. They have to stay actively involved, visible, and patient, because the resistance is part of the process. Leaders have to support other leaders, especially those that are closer to the trenches. If leaders disappear the moment things get uncomfortable, the entire effort collapses. Let me give you an example. One department I was in was a total mess. Meetings were chaotic, people talked over each other, and the bullies ran the room. It got so bad that the university brought in a conflict resolution consultant to try to get us functioning. We were all required to attend. Well, most of us. A few of the bullies didn't bother to show up, and of course, nothing happened to them for skipping. The rest of us, though, We focused on the one thing everyone agreed was unbearable: faculty meetings. We created a set of rules for how meetings would run: taking turns, time limits, how to ask questions. We all signed the paper saying we agreed. And for a while, it worked. Meetings were tolerable. People got to speak. The chair followed the rules and kept them posted. I remember thinking, okay, maybe this is finally going somewhere. But I wasn't fully aware of what was happening to our chair because the bullies didn't stop. They just shifted to him. Yes, meetings were better for me because the bullies were able to keep it together when there were eyes on them. But behind closed doors, they were raising hell with the chair, showing up in his office, yelling, swearing, cornering him. They didn't stop bullying. They redirected toward him. They just stopped bullying me. But once they shifted their behavior to him, it was only a matter of time before he cycled out. And everything went back to the way it had been. Well, it was even worse. I tell you this story for 3 reasons. One is to show you that change is possible. Even in the worst organizations and the worst bullying situations, for a brief moment, things actually got better. Structure and parameters help. People behaved. They interacted more professionally. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. 2 is to show you that when leaders hold their ground, bullies can adapt. They can follow rules when there are eyes on them. They can behave in public. That part actually worked, and it made things better in the department, not just for me, but for everyone. The 3rd reason is to point out the fatal flaws that the university and the chair made. The chair was great at enforcing structure in meetings, but not in one-on-one confrontation. He tolerated being yelled at and called names, and that pressure opened the door for everything else to collapse. If it had been me, I would have set boundaries in cement. I would have said something like this: "Hi, Bob. Thanks for stopping by. I'm sorry to see you're upset about faculty meetings. I'm happy to talk with you about that. So let's schedule a time when we're both clear-headed. I'll meet you tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the faculty meeting room. See you then." I would have shut my door or walked away, and certainly would not have let Bob yell at me like that. Not once, not ever. But no one had the chair's back or supported him. He didn't know what to do. That was a huge mistake by the university. They should have helped him by writing those bullies up and dropping the hammer on them. But they didn't. It's very hard to hold other bullies accountable when you're a bully yourself. Calling people names and yelling, that was everyday behavior for the university leadership, all the way up the chain of command to the very top. That was the culture. They were comfortable with it. They would cough up thousands of dollars for a conflict resolution trainer to make people feel good, but they never had any intention of making real change. It was performance, not a commitment. They weren't benefiting from the dysfunction, they were sustaining it. They related more to the bullies than to the people being bullied. Cultural change can't happen in a system where people in power are actively reinforcing the very behavior they claim to want to fix. So the department went back to business as usual, and the bullies won. That wasn't just devastating to me. It was devastating for students too. What happened in that department was the predictable outcome of a university where bullying had spread across the entire system. And leadership understood that if one department became healthy, it could spread and collapse the bully culture they so depended on. But those are the kinds of things that happen when you try to get rid of bullying. People are very resistant to change, even the ones who would benefit from it. So you have to expect it and be prepared for it. Bob is not going to let his power go quickly. He benefits too much. Bullies will resist. Bystanders will resist. And even people who are bullied may struggle because we all become accustomed to our roles within a dysfunctional culture. When clear standards are enforced, everyone has to adjust. Bob will not be able to hide behind a mask of respectability. He will have to become respectable. Betty can no longer rely on proximity to power for protection. She will have to learn how to operate without Bob propping her up. And the person who's bullied, well, I have to change too. I'm no longer cast as the victim, but as a colleague within a healthy culture. And that may take some time getting used to. It could be a bumpy ride, and not everyone will stay. When you put parameters around behavior, people have choices. Some will push back and test the boundaries. Over time, most adjust because people respond to what is tolerated and what is not. And the ones who refuse, well, they'll most likely leave. Either way, for a workplace trying to eliminate bully culture, that is a win. But training and a professional code of conduct are not enough. You also need a solid anti-bullying policy. The anti-bullying policy is the hard perimeter that you need. It clearly defines what bullying is. It establishes safe reporting channels and mandates prompt, impartial investigation. It protects people who are bullied and bystanders who speak up from retaliation. It triggers progressive discipline when bullying is identified and escalates consequences when necessary. That's enforcement. That is what a real anti-bullying policy should do. But why am I not calling for Bob to be fired on the spot? My bullies hurt me. That part is true. They did. It even still stings a little today. But I'm in the business of fixing problems, solving them, not passing them on to someone else. If we truly want bullying to stop, we have to address the people doing it. Bullying is learned behavior. When someone learns to bully and benefits from it, that behavior becomes ingrained. But what is learned can be unlearned. Bullies need to unlearn the bullying and learn what real professional conduct looks like. Getting rid of bullying is not an easy process. It takes significant effort to change a bully's behavior. It requires organization-wide interventions, effective policies, standards, strong leadership, and real accountability, because bullies lose their power only when leadership stops shielding them. Remove the shield, and the behavior cannot sustain itself. Bystanders stop going along to get along because inaction and silence carry consequences. Speaking up is expected and rewarded. The payoff is better. Reporting becomes safe. Complaints are taken seriously. The system protects the person who is bullied, not Bob. New employees are socialized into professional standards, not into bullying norms. Leadership demonstrates consistently that every person, no matter who they are in this organization, is treated with respect and dignity, and that line is enforced. That's when bullies start to fall. But even knowing what we know now about bullies, we still have to ask the question, is it possible for Bob to see the damage he's causing? Does he even know he's a bully? Is the answer a simple yes or no? Well, we'll find out in episode 26, The Reckoning. This podcast is independently funded. Consider supporting at stopbullyculture.com/support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this episode hits home, check out stopbullyculture.com, where I share tools, resources, and real talk to help you deal with workplace abuse. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Until next time.
They gaslight and plot, play their games. Witnesses smile, you're part of the shame. Your boss stays silent, closing the door. How many voices will they ignore? The bully lies, the brave get burned. The office watches, no lessons learned. Your boss hides, truth gets colder. It's time to stop the bully culture.